Ladies and gentlemen, imagine spending your whole life decorating a hotel room you're only staying in for one night, buying furniture, painting the walls, remodeling the space, only to check out the next morning and leave it all behind. That is exactly what so many of us are doing with this world. We pour everything into what is temporary, forgetting this is not our home. Tonight, I want to challenge you to stop living like renters trying to build permanence in a place you were never meant to stay and start living with eternity in mind. Because when you understand where your true home is, it changes how you live every single moment here. Life has a way of making us believe that what we see is all there is. From the moment we are born, the world conditions us to measure success by what we can acquire, accumulate, and control. We're told that the size of our bank account defines our security, that the house we live in determines our worth, and that the applause of people validates our purpose. Yet deep down, something inside whispers that there has to be more. We buy the car and a newer model comes out. We chase the promotion, and once we get it, the hunger for the next level gnaws at us again. We achieve a dream only to find that the satisfaction is short-lived. Why? Because this life, as appealing as it may look, is temporary. It was never designed to fulfill us permanently because it was never meant to be our home. Think about it. No matter how hard you try to hold on, everything here eventually slips through your fingers. Bodies that were once strong and vibrant grow weak with time. Wealth that took decades to build can vanish overnight in a financial collapse. Relationships we thought would last forever can end in heartbreak or separation. Even the greatest empires of history, Rome, Babylon, Egypt, crumbled into ruins. Nothing in this world lasts because it was not built for permanence. When you understand that truth, it changes the way you live. You stop trying to build a permanent life in a temporary place. When someone travels, they may check into a hotel, but no matter how comfortable that hotel may be, it's not their home. You might enjoy the bed, the amenities, the room service, but you don't hang family pictures on the wall or start remodeling the space. Why? Because it's temporary. You're only passing through. In the same way, earth is not a place to sink our roots too deeply. It's a temporary lodging before our eternal destination. The tragedy comes when people treat earth like their final home, investing all their hope, passion, and identity into what won't last. That's like a traveler trying to buy furniture for a hotel room. They forget the stay is short and the real home is waiting elsewhere. When we recognize that this world is not our home, it puts both success and suffering into perspective. Let's talk about success first. Many people spend their entire lives chasing the world's trophies. They climb ladders only to find the ladder leaning against the wrong wall. Achievements aren't wrong, but when we make them ultimate, they become an idol that cannot satisfy. Fame fades, money evaporates, and titles lose their power. Imagine working your entire life to build an empire, only to discover at the end that you can't take a single piece of it with you. That realization should shift our focus. We should use our time, our resources, and our talents for purposes that reach beyond this life, because only those investments pay eternal dividends. On the other side, recognizing that life is temporary also reframes our suffering. Pain, loss, betrayal, disappointment, all of these are real and often devastating. But when you know this world is not the final chapter, you can endure with hope. The tears you cry now are not forever. The sickness you battle, the rejection you face, the injustices you endure, none of these define your eternity. They are momentary compared to what lies ahead. It doesn't minimize the pain, but it gives you strength to keep going because you know that beyond this temporary struggle is an eternal glory that cannot be shaken. One of the most dangerous lies people believe is that earth is the ultimate reality. That mindset causes people to live recklessly or hopelessly. Some chase pleasure at any cost, thinking this is all they've got, so they might as well squeeze every ounce of indulgence out of life. Others fall into despair because the pain of this life seems overwhelming, and they don't realize that something greater is waiting on the other side. Both groups are deceived because they've confused the temporary with the eternal. This life is like a shadow compared to the reality that comes after. Think of the difference between a rehearsal and the actual performance. No actor would confuse a rehearsal with the final show. The rehearsal is practice, preparation, and positioning for what's coming. Life on earth is the rehearsal. Eternity is the performance. If you put all your energy into the rehearsal while ignoring the performance, you'll miss the very reason you were preparing in the first place. When you live with eternity in view, your priorities change. You stop asking, what will make me happiest now? And you start asking, what will matter most forever? This truth also brings urgency. Time is short. Every day we're here is one step closer to the day we'll leave. That means procrastination is dangerous. Too many people delay living with purpose because they assume they've got all the time in the world. But the clock is ticking and we don't know when our time will end. If this world is not our home, then the wise thing is to prepare for the transition before it comes. We don't wait until the moving truck arrives at our door to start packing. We prepare ahead of time. In the same way, we must prepare our hearts, our lives, and our legacy for the eternal home that awaits us. Living with eternity in mind doesn't make you careless about this life. It makes you more intentional. You work with excellence, not because you're trying to impress people here, but because you're representing something higher. You love people deeply, not just for what you can get from them, but because you know relationships have eternal value. You hold possessions loosely, knowing they're just tools, not treasures. You use your influence not to build your own kingdom, but to impact lives in ways that will last beyond the grave. So much of the frustration people carry comes from expecting earth to give what only heaven can provide. That's why we see people with everything the world says should make them happy, yet they feel empty. They're looking for permanence in a temporary world. Peace, fulfillment, joy. These are not found in things. They are found in a perspective anchored beyond this life. Until we embrace that this world is not our home, we will always live in disappointment because we'll be asking earth to do what only eternity can deliver. The call then is simple yet profound. Hold this world lightly. Live with gratitude for what you have, but don't make it your ultimate goal. Celebrate successes, but don't worship them. Mourn losses, but don't be crushed by them. Keep your eyes fixed on the eternal because everything else is passing away. Life on earth is temporary. Eternity is permanent. And when you live in that reality, you find strength, peace, and clarity that nothing in this world can ever take away. Comfort can be one of the greatest traps in life. It lulls us into a false sense of security, convincing us that where we are is good enough, that what we have is all we need, and that this temporary world is worth clinging to. But wow! And you pause and reflect, you realize that comfort is often an illusion. The home you live in today will one day crumble. The possessions you prize so dearly will one day belong to someone else or decay into dust. The titles you wear so proudly will one day be forgotten. Yet many live as though these things are ultimate. They decorate the temporary as if it were permanent, forgetting that this world is not the final stop. It's only the journey. When you get too comfortable in a temporary place, you start to lose perspective. Think about the difference between a traveler and a settler. A traveler knows that the airport is not home. They may sit in the lounge, they may rest in a chair, they may eat a meal, but they don't unpack their entire life in that space. Why? Because they're going somewhere. The airport is just a connection point, not a final destination. But a settler treats a place like home. They build, they invest, they root themselves there. When people become settlers in this world, instead of travelers passing through, they forget their higher calling. It's easy to see this trap in everyday life. People pour their energy into upgrading their lifestyles, chasing bigger houses, fancier cars, newer gadgets, believing that the next possession will finally satisfy them. They become obsessed with image, reputation, and applause, living for likes, followers, or the validation of others. None of these pursuits are inherently wrong, but the danger is when they become the focus of life. You can live so consumed with temporary upgrades that you miss eternal investments. You can get so attached to earth's comforts that you lose sight of heaven's rewards. The truth is, comfort here can distract us from our real mission. This world is not a resting place. It's a training ground. It's not about sitting back and building our own kingdoms. It's about advancing a greater kingdom. Yet when comfort becomes the goal, mission takes a back seat. The drive to serve, to give, to sacrifice, to stand and boldly for what matters, all of that gets silenced when the priority becomes self-preservation and convenience. Comfort whispers, take it easy. Don't risk too much. Don't give too much. Don't step out of line. But calling says, press forward, step out in faith. Use what you have for something bigger than yourself. Comfort is about settling, but calling is about moving. One of the most dangerous places to be in life is where nothing challenges you anymore. When everything is smooth, when you never face resistance, when you've built a life that insulates you from risk or discomfort, it's easy to stop growing. Growth always comes through stretching, through testing, through stepping outside what feels safe. Comfort, on the other hand, makes you stagnant. It makes you build walls around yourself to protect what you think you can't live without. And slowly, without realizing it, you become a prisoner of the very things you thought would bring you freedom. History shows us this pattern. Entire generations have fallen asleep spiritually because life was too easy. Prosperity blinded them to purpose. Security made them forget urgency. They became so rooted in this world that they no longer long for the next one. But hardship has a way of shaking people awake. Suffering strips away illusions and reminds us that this world is not enough. Sometimes the greatest gift God can give us is discomfort because it forces us to loosen our grip on the temporary and fix our eyes on the eternal. The danger of comfort is that it makes you believe you belong here. You start treating earth like your forever home. You start remodeling your hotel room instead of preparing for the mansion that awaits. Imagine someone checking into a hotel for a 3-night stay and immediately calling contractors to redo the floors, paint the walls, and install a new kitchen. You'd look at them and think they've lost perspective. Why would anyone invest so heavily in a place they're only passing through? Yet that's exactly what many people do with their lives. They spend decades chasing after things they cannot take with them, pouring themselves into possessions that will one day be left behind. If this world is temporary, then our choices should reflect that truth. Instead of chasing comfort, we should chase calling. Instead of building bigger barns, we should build bigger impact. Instead of living like renters obsessed with decorating a temporary room, we should live like ambassadors, representing the kingdom we truly belong to. That doesn't mean we can't enjoy blessings along the way, but it does mean blessings should never replace the mission. Comfort is a gift, but it's not the goal. This perspective changes how we view success. True success is not measured by how much you accumulated, but by how much you invested in eternity. It's not about how comfortable your life was, but about how purposeful it was. Did you live to please yourself, or did you live to make a difference that outlasts you? Did you use your resources to build a bigger name for yourself, or did you use them to advance something greater? These are the questions that matter, because one day the comforts will fade, but the impact will remain. It also changes how we handle sacrifice. Many hesitate to give, to serve, to stand up for truth because it costs too much. But if you remember that this world is not home, the cost seems small compared to the eternal reward. Comfort says protect yourself. Faith says pour yourself out. Comfort says don't take the risk. Purpose says step out of the boat. Comfort says stay safe. Destiny says move forward. When you know this life is temporary, you realize that clinging to comfort is actually the most dangerous choice you can make because it keeps you from fulfilling what you were sent here to do. The illusion of comfort is powerful because it feels so good in the moment, but that's just it. It's temporary. No matter how safe you try to make yourself, life has a way of shaking the walls you've built. The stock market crashes, health declines, friends betray, opportunities vanish. Comfort is never permanent because the ground we're standing on is temporary. That's why anchoring your life in it is so unstable. You need something stronger, something eternal, something unshakable. When you set your heart on what lasts forever, you can enjoy the blessings of this life without being enslaved by them. The choice before us is clear. Settle for temporary comfort or pursue eternal purpose. One feels good now, but fades quickly. The other requires sacrifice, but pays off forever. Too many people are polishing the furniture in their hotel room while neglecting the eternal mansion waiting for them. They've gotten so comfortable in a temporary place that they've forgotten where home really is. When you know that this world is not your home, your entire identity shifts. You begin to see yourself not just as a person surviving day to day, but as a citizen of a higher kingdom. That truth changes everything. How you think, how you act, how you endure, and even how you define success. The difference between living for this world and living for the next is like the difference between someone focused on a temporary race and someone preparing for a lifelong marathon. One burns out chasing applause that fades. The other runs with endurance because the prize is eternal. Identity is powerful because it dictates behavior. If you believe you are just like everyone else, tossed around by the same trends, anxieties, and ambitions, then you will live according to the world system. But when you know you belong to something greater, you rise above the pull of the temporary. You are no longer enslaved by the world's definitions of value. Instead of asking, what do people think of me? You begin to ask, what does my King think of me? Instead of measuring worth by possessions, you measure it by purpose. Instead of being driven by fear of loss, you are motivated by eternal gain. This shift in identity gives you courage. People often compromise their convictions because they fear rejection or ridicule. But when your citizenship is in heaven, earthly opinions lose their grip on you. You realize that no applause and no criticism can define you because your worth comes from above, not from the crowd. That freedom allows you to live boldly, to stand for truth even when it costs you, to live authentically even when it's unpopular. You can endure being misunderstood because you understand who you are and where you're headed. It also changes how you see trials. If this world were your only home, then every loss would feel like the end. Every disappointment would be crushing. Every setback would look permanent. But when you know you're just passing through, you see trials differently. You realize that pain, while real, is temporary. Suffering, while difficult, is not forever. Heartbreak, while devastating, is not the final chapter. You can walk through the valley without despair because you know the valley is not your destination. Identity rooted in eternity gives you resilience to keep moving forward when everything around you is crumbling. That's why some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are not those who avoided hardship, but those who faced it with eternal perspective. They were able to smile through tears, to hope in the dark, to forgive when wronged because they were anchored in something greater than the moment. They weren't living for comfort here. They were living for glory there. When your identity is tied to eternity, nothing in this world has the power to break you completely. Knowing you are not of this world also reshapes how you handle success. Earthly success is intoxicating. It makes people proud, greedy, and self-sufficient. But when you know this is not your home, you treat success as a tool, not a trophy. Achievements become platforms to serve, not monuments to self. You can celebrate victories without worshiping them. You can enjoy blessings without being controlled by them. You can hold promotions, influence, and resources loosely because you know they are temporary assignments, not eternal possessions. This attitude guards you from arrogance and keeps your heart humble, grateful, and focused. It also transforms how you treat people. When you live with an eternal mindset, relationships become more important than recognition. You realize that people last forever while possessions do not. That truth makes you quicker to forgive because grudges weigh you down with chains that have no eternal value. It makes you more generous with love because love is the language of eternity. It makes you intentional with influence because you're not just trying to win arguments, you're trying to win souls. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to reflect the kingdom you represent. Living with this identity also brings clarity in a world of confusion. The culture around us constantly changes its values. What was right yesterday is wrong today. What was shameful in one generation is celebrated in the next. People are tossed back and forth by shifting opinions, never knowing where to stand. But when you know your citizenship is in heaven, you are rooted in something unchanging. Truth doesn't shift with culture. Identity doesn't depend on trends. You are anchored in a kingdom that cannot be shaken, so you can stand firm even when the world around you feels like quicksand. Another powerful shift that comes with this mindset is contentment. The world tells us we're always one step away from happiness, one more purchase, one more achievement, one more upgrade. But when you know this world is not your home, y'all, you stop looking to it for satisfaction. You realize nothing temporary can fill an eternal hunger. That knowledge frees you from endless striving and comparison. You stop measuring your life against others because your goal isn't to keep up with neighbors. It's to fulfill your purpose. That brings a peace the world can't understand because it's not based on circumstances. It's based on a deeper reality. This eternal identity also fuels courage to take risks for what matters. If this life were all you had, then the safe, comfortable, predictable path would make the most sense. But when you know eternity is waiting, you're willing to step out in faith, even if it costs you here. You can sacrifice because you know sacrifice is not the end. You can give generously because you know your true treasure is secure. You can pursue purpose over popularity because you know the rewards that matter most are not handed out in this life. That kind of courage makes people unstoppable, not because they are fearless, but because their fear no longer rules them. One of the most liberating truths is that nothing you lose here can diminish who you are there. Jobs can be lost, reputations can be attacked, friendships can end, possessions can disappear, but your eternal identity remains untouched. That stability gives you confidence to keep moving forward no matter what happens. Even when life strips away everything else, you still belong to something unshakable. When you embrace this truth fully, your priorities shift dramatically. You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter and start investing in things that last. You use your time differently. You speak differently. You think differently. You live with a kind of urgency because you know your days here are short, but what you do with them echoes forever. Every act of kindness, every word of truth, every step of faith is like planting seeds that will bear fruit beyond time itself. This identity is not just a comforting thought. It's a calling to live as though this world is now. At your home is to live with a higher standard, a clearer mission, and a deeper hope. It's to see yourself as an ambassador representing the values of a kingdom people cannot see but desperately need. You are not here to blend in. You are here to stand out, not to settle, but to shine, not to build monuments to yourself, but to point others to the eternal. Every single day, we are making investments. Whether we realize it or not, our choices are deposits into either the temporary or the eternal. Every word spoken, every decision made, every action taken is like a seed planted in one of two fields. The problem is that too many people are planting seeds only in the soil of this world, forgetting that this world is passing away. They are busy pouring their energy, time, and talents into things that will not last. The danger of forgetting that this world is not our home is that we begin to treat the temporary as ultimate, and in doing so, we waste the very life we've been given. Think of how often people are distracted by what doesn't matter. Hours are spent scrolling through meaningless updates, comparing lives, chasing after recognition from people who may not even remember our names in a few years. Years are spent climbing ladders of success only to find at the top that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Energy is poured into acquiring possessions that one day will be outdated, broken, or inherited by someone else. What's tragic is not that people chase these things, it's that they trade eternal purpose for them. It's like someone who spends all their money buying expensive souvenirs in a country they're only visiting for a week, then comes home broke with nothing that truly matters. Living with eternal purpose means shifting our perspective from what fades to what lasts. It means recognizing that the applause of men is temporary, but the approval of God is eternal. It means remembering that money can buy comfort, but it can't buy peace. It can purchase experiences, but it can't purchase meaning. Eternal purpose lifts our eyes beyond the moment. It forces us to ask harder questions. Will this matter 5 years from now? Will this matter 50 years from now? More importantly, will this matter in eternity? If the answer is no, why are we giving it so much of ourselves? The pull of distraction is strong because it offers instant gratification. The temporary always promises quick rewards. Comfort now, recognition now, pleasure now. But eternal purpose often calls for patience, sacrifice, and faith. It asks you to give even when it costs you, to forgive when you'd rather hold on to offense, to stay faithful when walking away seems easier. And yet, it's only the eternal that truly satisfies, because only the eternal lasts. Everything else eventually reveals itself to be empty. When you live with eternal purpose, your definition of success changes. Success is not measured by how much you accumulate, but by how much you invest in what cannot be taken away. Success is not about being remembered for your name, but about leaving an impact that outlives your time on earth. It is not about building monuments that crumble, but about sowing seeds in people's lives that bear fruit for generations. The person who chases temporary recognition may be praised today and forgotten tomorrow. The person who lives for eternal purpose may be overlooked today, but will be celebrated forever. Living with eternal purpose also brings clarity in seasons of hardship. If life were only about the here and now, then pain would be unbearable. But when you know you are living for something beyond the present, even suffering can take on meaning. Trials become tests that refine your character. Loss becomes a reminder of where your true treasure is stored. Sacrifice becomes an act of worship rather than a burden. Eternal purpose gives weight to your struggle, assuring you that no pain is wall. Stead, no tear is unseen, and no battle fought with faith is ever in vain. One of the tragedies of distraction is how it robs people of their destiny. The world is filled with noise, endless entertainment, constant busyness, ceaseless striving. If you don't guard your focus, you can spend your entire life busy, but never productive, active, but never impactful, moving, but never advancing toward your true calling. Eternal purpose demands focus. It calls you to silence the noise, to evaluate your choices, and to filter your activities through the lens of eternity. It's not about doing more, but about doing what matters most. Think of the difference between a tourist and an ambassador. A tourist is consumed with attractions, souvenirs, and temporary pleasures. An ambassador, on the other hand, has a mission. They are not in the foreign land for their own enjoyment. They are there to represent their home country. Too many people live as tourists in this world, chasing after distractions, collecting experiences, and focusing only on themselves. But those who live with eternal purpose understand they are ambassadors. Their time here is short, their mission is clear, and their loyalty is to a higher kingdom. Eternal purpose also reshapes how we handle our resources. Money, time, talent, all of these are tools, not treasures. Tools are meant to be used, not worshiped. When you see them through the lens of eternity, you hold them with open hands. You give generously because you know you're investing in something that cannot be destroyed. You serve faithfully because you understand that nothing done with eternal purpose is wasted. You steward your gifts wisely because you know they were given to you for more than just personal gain. They were entrusted to you for kingdom impact. Living with eternal purpose does not mean neglecting the present. It means elevating it. It means every ordinary moment becomes extraordinary when done with the right focus. Work is no longer just about earning a paycheck. It becomes an opportunity to represent integrity and excellence. Relationships are no longer just about companionship. They become opportunities to demonstrate love that reflects eternity. Even the smallest acts, an encouraging word, a helping hand, a sacrifice unseen by others, become investments with eternal return. Distraction loses its power when you are driven by eternal purpose. You don't have to chase every trend because you're anchored in truth. You don't have to win every argument because you're focused on a bigger mission. You don't have to collect every possession because you're storing treasures where they can't be stolen. Eternal purpose gives you freedom, the freedom to live simply, love deeply, and give boldly. It allows you to let go of the need to prove yourself because you know your worth is not measured here but secured forever. This perspective also gives urgency to how you live. Time is not guaranteed. Every day is one step closer to eternity, and what you do with that day matters. Living with eternal purpose means you don't waste opportunities. You speak truth when you have the chance. You show kindness when the moment presents itself. You take risks to make a difference because you know tomorrow is not promised. Too many people live like they have unlimited time, but the reality is that life is fragile. Purpose calls you to live intentionally, not someday, but today. At the end of it all, the question will not be how comfortable you were, how popular you became, or how much you owned. The question will be whether you live for something that outlasts you. Did you invest in what matters most? Did you fulfill the assignment given to you? Did you plant seeds that will bear fruit in eternity? Every day offers the chance to say yes to those questions. Every choice is an opportunity to trade distraction for destiny, temporary gain for eternal reward, fleeting pleasure for lasting impact. That is what it means to live with eternal purpose instead of earthly distraction